There we go, almost on cue. Excellent. And just today as well, just as we get started, wanted to just share a little bit of wayfinding. I'm your facilitator host for the next 3 days. Beata and Anna from Impact Hub Company are going to be on as well with us, helping with tech support. So if you have any tech issues or challenges or connectivity issues, you can reach out to them. And Flavia is also here with helping on content. And we've got our intrepid board members, Alfredo, Monica, and Patricia, as well as Tiziana, who are going to be helping to lead some of the conversations over the next few days. So I don't know if we want to put the presentation up, Anna, and we can just share a little bit of an overview of our time together over the next few days. And for those of you who have been with us in Switzerland and in other gatherings, well, I'll remind you that I'm committed to starting on time, keeping our breaks as scheduled, and also ending on time. So there may be a little bit of shift in some of the timing as we go through the content, but do commit to ending on time today, and knowing that the breaks are going to happen when they happen, when they're scheduled. So we have the time to manage our time together that way. So over the next 3 days, we've got a series of interactive conversations, some presentations, and also some work around the General Assembly. For those of you that were in Switzerland, I talked about going from local to global and how we're doing that as a network, and that time together in Switzerland was a possibility mindset. And now we're pivoting towards action and commitments. And in order to help do that, before we get into any of those pieces, we do have some work around the General Assembly. So we'll do a little bit of housekeeping first around the General Assembly and some of the things there for your role as an AREP. And this is a meeting where decisions need to be made and motions and board nominees need to be voted to the board. So I'm going to turn it over to Alfredo, and we'll do the work around the General Assembly now. And then we'll spend a little bit more time right after that talking about how we're going to be spending the next 3 days together. So Alfredo, if you're ready, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can give us an overview for the General Assembly.
Well, hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending on where you are. Here in Mexico is pretty early. I am very, very happy for this to happening. First of all, we want to thank you for all the engagement. It has been around 3 or 4 months of a lot of work when we decide to do this timeline, when we started with the General Assembly, then the collaboration month, the retreat, and 3 weeks later, the global gathering. We try to make a timeline very inclusive, very collaborative, and that many people can participate. And we are going to start with the General Assembly and with the motions that we have. I will give a quick recap about the 6 motions that we have for this General Assembly. So the first one, and I will read it from my computer. The first one, it is about the Impact Hub Association board upgrade. This one is to get new skills to the board to make more engagement with other external participants that can be part of the board. And this motion is really important for us. We as a network have been working in this motion since 2018, and this is a very good opportunity to upgrade our governance. Our motion number 2 is appointment of an external association board seat for Gavitsa, for Gabriela Gandel. The Impact Hub Association Board considers, and that's why we are proponent of this motion, that the skills that can bring Gavitsa to the board are very important. After 10 years of being part of the Impact Hub company, and after a lot of conversation that we have been having during the collaboration month, we did this appointment of external association board seat to Gavitsa. The motion number 3 is to change the membership committee cycle and the election process. Now the membership committee cycle is of 1 year, and sometimes it is difficult to have this of 1 year because we are onboarding, have the process or have the participation of the committee, and then again elections. So having this each year is very difficult to have track, and the idea of this motion is to change for a 2-year mandate for the membership committee. It will extend for 1 year more, and we will have membership committees for 2 years. Again, for being more practical and for having this knowledge in more time. The motion number 4 is about the revolving fund. And like you know, this is again something that we have been working around some years right now. Last November was approved the creation, and now we are asking the law ones to participate in this and to operate this. You can also read more of the motions in the deck and in the makerspace. The motion number 5 is the extension of the timeline for the suspension of the temporary closure process. As many of you know, the COVID continues striking in an economic way, in a health way, in a social way. We are recovering in the numbers, and we can see also in the voting impact hubs that we are recovering from this, but we are still with some impact hubs that are struggling because of their local economies and because of different things. So we are making an extension of the timeline for the suspension of the temporary closure process. Again, you can read, you have like the videos that we recorded, the motions more explained in different parts, like in the deck, also in the makerspace. The number 6 is the transfer license for Impact Hub Boston. They are having a kind of governance change. They are proposing to have Alicia and Hillary now as the new shareholders. This is a transfer license protocol. Also, you can see the recordings of this motion, and for more information, it is in the deck. So these are the 6 motions that we have for this General Assembly. There are not so much. Last one, we have almost 17. So in this one, it is very important to read them, to know them. We had 1 month with 2 calls for each motion, when it was our collaboration month, and all the information, you have it in there. And now we are going to pass for the board elections. This General Assembly is very important because we are having a lot of transitions this year, and I have said this several times also in the collaboration month, in the retreat. It has been 2 years of a lot of transitions, digital transitions, ED transitions, and now we are going also for a board elections, and it will be a board transition. First of all, we want to thank all the AREPs for all the engagement around that year. It has not been an easy year. It has been a year of difficult decisions. And we want to make a special thank you for the board nominees that step forward for this process. And now we are going to present them, and each board nominee will have 2 minutes to present themselves and to tell why they want to be part of the board and what they want to bring to the board. And we are going to start with Marco, that it is running for treasurer. So I give the word to Marco. Please present yourself and why you want to be part of the board.
Thank you, Alfredo. Hi to all. I'm Marco Nannini. I'm one of the investors in Impact Hub Milano in 2012. And my former career is I started as a consultant, a strategy consultant in several companies like Boston Consulting Group and Roland Berger. And then I moved to start after 20 years as a business angel. And during my activities as a business angel, I meet Alberto Masetti, and I decided to invest in Impact Hub. After that, I became involved in the managing of the hubs. Now I am the main shareholder, and I am the CEO until 2014. And we work here as an incubator, and we have a lot of activities in incubation and business angels activities. And this is what I try to transfer to the rest of the network. And in fact, we are working with Belgrado, with Medellin, and with Istanbul in order to develop a similar business angel group, even in these hubs. So why I decided to be in the board? Because I'd like to be more involved in the activities of the network, and I think it's necessary to give my point of view, that I'd like to transfer my point of view in terms of impact, in terms of investing especially, and I hope to help all the network in order to be more sustainable in terms of economics.
Thank you, Marco. Now we are going to go with the board candidates for the deputy position. And we are going to start with Sebastian Sebas from Impact Hub Medellin. Sebastian, please.
Thank you, Alfredo. Very excited to be here today. So I'm a management engineer, and I have an MBA, and I also have studies in city health diplomacy. Most of my experience has been developed around sustainability and entrepreneurship. I've been part of a couple of big corporate groups around technology mostly, and I have been part of an organization called ISEC as National External Director and President of ISEC in the Southern Corner. I was part of the board there as well, but mostly my experience has been shaped around entrepreneurship. I've been an entrepreneur for already 15 years now, and I have managed to win 11 recognition as an entrepreneur for the teams that we have co-led. I'm currently based in Barcelona as a strategy to be closer to the network, and as Impact Hub in Medellin. I co-founded it with Fede, my business partner, and we've built a community of around 500 members through our programs. We have been managing on a space which is transitioning now, previously at 2,200 square meters, and we have deployed to the network and through our local ecosystem plus 30 programs in many different topics. Inside the network, I've been involved in several projects, such as the Resilient Entrepreneurs Promotion projects with Impact Hubs in Central America, capacity building workshops in real estate, translocal strategies. As a coach, the Latin cluster itself. And basically what I bring from a humble perspective is high capacity in terms of internal and external representation, concrete experience in innovating around business models, and a tech background due to my previous entrepreneurial experience and extensive know-how in how to nurture translocal collaboration. And why am I applying to the board? I feel super excited because of the 2030 vision. We're living in a crucial moment now. And what we decide at the moment as the network and an organization is going to shape how the network is going to look like in the coming years. And then I have witnessed the potential we have as a network. And from the board, I want to be part of the shift we need to embody as a network in order to make it to the 2030.
Thank you, Sebas. And now we are going with Gabriela from Impact Hub Florianopolis. Gabi. Go ahead.
Thank you,
please.
Alfredo. Yeah, so I'm Gabriela. I'm co-founder and managing director of Impact Hub Florianopolis in Brazil. I'm also the president of Impact Hub Brazil Association at the moment. I realize I haven't told you about the studies in the previous call. So I do have a degree in law and did some other formal studies in economics, sustainability, and more recently in governance. And as we only have 2 minutes, I decided to focus on why I want to be here with all of you. And I'm super excited to pave the way in this critical moment for our Ambition 2030, particularly the aspects that involve working with unprivileged entrepreneurs, inclusion and diversity. We do have a program now for over 4 years that reached almost 5,000 micro entrepreneurs and changed their lives. So I'm very excited about that. Building the new level of partnerships we need for this ambition that we put together. I also had this possibility of doing in the local and national level, starting from local partners to national partners and perhaps now with global partners. And also something that I'm super excited is to discover how we're going to create the value, technology, the new way of hosting the communities and the business model behind this super ambitious vision of having 100 million impact members engaged and really attributing part of what they learn, the impact they have, and their connections to Impact Hub. And another thing that I'd like to add, I believe we had a very important improvement recently doing more business together through our translocal strategy. And I see a possibility of us advancing that, not only doing business together, but investing in each other, sitting on each other's boards and strengthening our relationships through those ways too. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriela. And now we're going with Cés from Impact Hub Manila. Welcome, Cés.
Hi, good evening from Manila. So I'm Cés Randario. I'm the founder and CEO of Impact Hub here in the Philippines, which we started about 6 years ago. And halfway through, 2 years into that, I started to lead the company here alone in the Philippines. And with that took a lot of leadership and a lot of digging deep. And we were able to turn Manila around into one of the strongest hubs in Asia Pacific. And in 2018, I took on the role as regional lead of Asia Pacific. And for the last almost 4 years, we have been, the region has grown tremendously, growing in partnership and in the depth and the things that we've done as a region. And that's really exactly what I want to bring to the global board, should I be given the opportunity to serve, is that the unique perspective from the Asia Pacific, from which I think is really needed and necessary to make sure that we are represented and we are diverse in all the things that we do, but also that engagement from the hubs and making sure that our members are also represented in the things that we are about, and being able to have a way of relating to the rest of the world, which we've done across Asia from here. And so I guess what I want to see is really for the network to grow holistically, making sure that our hubs are profitable, making sure that we reach the numbers that we've envisioned for our membership base, but also being more developing the depth of the work and the offerings that we provide our community. And also I think my background in leadership and partnerships and sales and development and business development have long prepared me for a role like this. And so I would love that opportunity to bring everything that I've learned in the last 4 years as regional lead to global. Thank you.
Thank you, Cés. And finally, we we have a special situation, and this is like something that sad for everyone in the network. We have also Lina as candidate for expert advisor position. We know what it is happening in Impact Hub Khartoum. We are really sorry. I don't have words for what it is happening. And well, we have been communicating with her, and we know that they are having that she's having trouble with the internet connection and everything like that. I don't know, Moni, if you would like to add something or like this. I have been receiving the WhatsApp, but well, it is very difficult for them to connect right now for the global gathering, but you can see her application, the recording of the first code, and all the motivation of why she wants to be part of the board. Thank you, JP. And well, we can continue, and really we are very, very sorry for what it is happening, and we are preparing a communication to express our position as a network. Can we continue, please? Also, we have the membership committee elections, and well, again, this is why we are changing that protocol, because each year we have membership committee elections. So the nominees for this are, and here you can vote for each of them. It is we have Brian, we have Claudia, and we have George. They have been near the membership committee. We know them. Again, in here they are not. It is not a competition. You can vote for the three of them to be part of the membership committee. And this is some of the adjustment that we are doing around this so important committee, to have it each 2 years, because now you have, or we have, also me as an AREP, to vote each year for the membership committee. So it is very important. The voting, can we continue, please? Before the reflections, of course, then let's don't make, we have, I think we have already, we have sent the link of the for the voting. The voting will be open from today until Thursday, and in Thursday we are going to give the results after the break. It is very important, your participation. We are going to be calling for vote and to participate in all of these in the global gathering. So it is super important for us. Now, I will pass the word again to Lee after this.
Thank you so much, Alfredo. I know that there was an opportunity. If there's an opportunity, if anyone has any questions around the General Assembly, you can raise your virtual hand and we go through there. And as noted, if there are requests for the link for the voting, that the link is personal, so just sharing that from the chat. You should have received an email with the link if you have voting rights. So we won't put the link to the vote in the chat. Please double check your inbox if you are the designated, if you have voting rights for the General Assembly. So if there was any, pause just for a moment to see if there's any questions that come up. I'm gonna check the raised hands on that, but I think the process and format for the General Assembly is pretty clear. The motions are there. The board nominations, as I mentioned in the chat, due to the circumstances in Sudan right now, Len is unable to join us, but we'll provide her the opportunity to make her her remarks if she's able to join us at some point today. So thank you for your patience on that as we wait for that. I don't see any questions coming into the chat, but what I want to do now maybe is invite Anna to play a little video for us.
Sorry, Claudia has a question.
Oh, sorry.
No,
okay.
it's not a question. I just wanted to say thank you for your courage. I'm really enthusiastic of receiving 5 candidates. I think it's the first time in our network that we have so many people stepping up for this position, and I really want to appreciate and congratulate you and thank you, because this talks a lot about the commitment of our network. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you, Claudia. Amani, over to you. I think you have a couple things to share.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Claudia. I think there is a lot of excitement, and welcome everyone to our online global gathering for the second time online. We're so excited to have you, and we're so excited to feel connected still amidst these very chaotic 2 years. It feels like it has been a lifetime since we last saw each other, like as an entire network. And as you know, we would normally, or if you don't know, we would normally be doing this General Assembly all together. We would be sitting in a round room and like having an official vote and welcoming these 5 amazing candidates, which we have repeated over and over again. Like, we are happy no matter what the conclusion of this voting is. We have amazing candidates. We have people stepping forward. So as you know, this has been a particular year also for our board and our company. We have been amidst a transition that we will be talking about, but we have new leadership coming in, leadership evolving, new board members, new executive directors. So there's a lot of new things. And in the middle of that, we decided about a month and a half ago that we'd love to meet. So we decided, for the people who really could meet, to meet a global retreat. So this is the first time we ever hosted a global retreat. It was open to everyone, and we were happy enough to receive like 70 participants, which, just to give you a bit of context, we decided we would go ahead with this retreat even if only 15 people signed up. And we ended up having 70 of you. We couldn't even believe that so many of you were willing to connect face to face, despite the challenges of traveling nowadays. And even if in that retreat we weren't in a deciding mindset, we were more of in a possibility mindset. We had wonderful strategic conversations that we will tell you more about today and throughout the next two days. But yeah, we're just so excited to host you as a team and to come to this moment, this important moment and milestone in the year, which is just receiving all of you. Even though we have this online space, our team, Beate and Anna, created this amazing video to give you a bit of a sense of, if you weren't at the retreat, a bit of a sense of what we lived in the Swiss Alps. So we wanted to share that with you before, as a board, we give you a bit of more of the technical background of what happened. So they'll share the magic, and we'll see how that goes. We hope you enjoy it.
Don't know if I was aware a piece was missing. In this puzzle I used to call my life. Oh no, didn't even care enough to be dismissive. I just kept keeping on in my stride. Oh, you've been waiting out there somewhere in the wind. Yes, it's true. It just goes to show it ain't over
Thank you so much for that video. That brought back so many memories of that time together. Some of you might recognize a bit of this virtual background. I think I'm gonna go with another one here. Better view here of the beautiful landscape behind us. I have to thank Tatiana who took this picture for me. I hold it now. It's a great memory for the time we had together. And I don't know if everyone was there. I just, you know, that first day when we show up together in a space and relearning how to interact with people in real life. As a facilitator and host, it was something like this was the first gathering that I had a chance to host in person in almost 2 years. And it felt so wonderful and like familiar in a way, but also strange and new at the same time. And I don't know if it felt the same way for everyone else as well, but just thinking about that time that we had traveling together and spending time together was it was enriching in so many different ways. And I think that I didn't realize how much I'd missed human connectivity until I was with all of you again. And part of that is, I think, is the space. Obviously, you know, whether we're on the beach in Floripa or by the river in Ottawa or in the mountains in Switzerland or together on Zoom, there's something about the places where we connect, but also the people that are part of this network. And I'll just share a brief little story. My partner came with me on this trip for the first time, and I've had the pleasure of working with this network for a number of years. And I try to describe the work of, you know, the gatherings. And sometimes you'd see photos and he's like, well, Lee, is it a conference or is it a party? Like, what are you doing with these Impact Hub folks all the time? Because he's like, it doesn't look like work. At the end of the gathering, we were chatting on our way home, and he's like, I get it now. I get what the magic of this group is and how you come together and the spaces together, like in the agenda and the formal stuff, but also in the informal time that we have to connect and do that. And that was so enriching for me to come back to this to this group and to spend some time with all of you in a beautiful setting, but more importantly with beautiful people with beautiful ideas and a beautiful network. So thank you again for inviting me to be a part of those moments, but also this moment today. And for those of you that were there, I know I've made this sign before, like thinking from local to global. And we're going to continue to do that today. And I wanted to invite so Gabica, Patricia, Monica, and Tatiana. We're going to share some reflections. And in the chat too, I'd invite everyone too who did have a chance to come to share, you know, what stuck with you from the gathering. And what's something you're bringing from that gathering into this space today? So we're connecting virtually now. What's something that you're looking excited about bringing forward from that possibility space to our action space today? So we can maybe pop it up, and maybe we can do a little plenary style where we can have everyone's faces up there that I mentioned. And we can just have a bit of a conversation around some of those reflections before we get into more of the agenda for today.
Well, thank you, Lee. It was very, I will start with the part of the ambitions, that it was something magical, because like all the last year, we were trying to figure out how to solve so much things. And then we organized ourselves and put all these ambitions together, and it was all in Zoom and virtually. But again, and from what you said, the power of the network and the energy of the people and reconnecting. And when we started with that word, that it was reconnect, and we understand again the power and the energy that was in that ambition was in other dimension. And also what I want to bring to this gathering, to this online global gathering, is the opportunity and the inclusion to all the people that didn't make it because of the restriction and because of all of that, to bring all that information and all that energy that we created, bring it forward. and to create together tactics to make it happen. When we talked in the retreat, I felt again hope to make it happen, and that decision making mindset that we want to bring in this global online global gathering, I think is the most important part of it. That to feel that we are a community, that we are a network, and that we have each other to support us. So that are my feelings after the retreat and what I want to bring to the gathering.
Yeah, I think I resonate with a lot of what Alfredo has said, and at the same time, I remember explicitly like that moment when when the pandemic first hit and there was a bit of a shock, but and how I initially thought like, oh, interesting. In the network, we're probably gonna go very local right now. We're gonna be very locally focused, trying to solve our local realities and stay afloat. And actually what happened was, I think who was part of that will know that we became actually very global, and we started connecting a lot and trying to understand what was happening in different parts of the world, how we could learn from each other, how we could support each other through this. And Vision 2030 is a result of that, right? Where we said, well, let's think boldly about the next step. It's not about just responding with something that is a little fluffy and sounds great, Vision 2030. It was really about, okay, we're being presented with a huge challenge that we don't know how to navigate, but we're going to respond with an even bolder statement. And I think that was just a very courageous and beautiful thing to do, that we collaborated to create Vision 2030. And at the same time, Vision 2030 initially felt like very far away, but something that I loved hearing at the retreat was that statement of like, oh, actually, it's right around the corner. Like 2030 is so close. And then a couple of people, I remember hearing them say, are we up for this? Is this something that we're up for? Because the ambitions that we've decided to lay and present to each other and commit to, it's going to require a tremendous amount of work. And are we willing to make our individual part and in this collective ambition? And I think kind of that boldness in that question, even I was like, okay, are we willing to do this and take this forward? And it's going to take a lot of work. So I love how that was, to me, that was the embodiment of, this is not just talk. This is not just, Vision 2030. We want to put that on Facebook and Instagram. No, it's embedded in how we are going to act from this moment on. And that is part of what we are still fine-tuning and how we're still embedding it in our planning. But yeah, we had really, really interesting conversations. But I remember those kind of two key moments that for me were very, very targeted and very clear and very bold.
Patricia, how about you?
Hi everybody. It was actually so, thank you, Anna, for that video, because it was really, really nice to go through the retreat once again. And I think for me it was a very special week, because for the first time in 2 years, I think I made a purpose of being present, and I gave myself that intention to be present. And I think as we connect virtually, we get distracted so easily by so many things that happen around us, that to have that opportunity to be in the moment, to share, to connect, it was just very, very special. And I resonate with what Monica and Alfredo have been saying. It was amazing to see how we could shift, from local to global, how we had this great opportunity to think about strategy, to really challenge ourselves in new with new topics, that maybe we hadn't considered before, or we hadn't had the chance to discuss as a group before. And very excited to see the enthusiasm and how we want to push the solutions forward and make sure that they don't just stay as ideas or as discussions, but actually see them come alive so that we can meet our 2030 goal.
Thank you. And Tatiana, hello, it's good to see you in Amsterdam. Hello from Ottawa. And this is probably an interesting gathering for you as incoming leader of the global team. And I'm curious about your, so one, congratulations, and like a moment to celebrate you and in this transition. I'm sure everyone's really excited about that. But coming into the gathering you've been familiar with the network for so long, but in a different role. Like, how did that feel for you, and what did you take from this?
Well, I mean, it's a bit of transition. So going in wearing my Impact Hub Amsterdam hat, being given another hat, and kind of go, oh, whoops, I'm wearing another hat. I'm starting to wear it. It's not quite fitting on my head completely yet. I'll put it on in January. And then coming back and like Patricia says, you get distracted and you have local stuff, and I'm like, oh, let me zoom back up to the global gathering. So I think first of all, I want to say thanks, Anna, for the video, because as I saw the pictures, I was like, I've got the chapter. The title for the next chapter. It's like, out of the mist we come, or down from the hill we come. You really have this image of being in retreat. And I think it was actually really beautiful to be in retreat and not have the pressure of like, we're doing a legislative meeting or have to make decisions, or that there's, lobbying or side conversations about stuff, which sometimes happens. But I think first of all, it also struck me, even though I've been in the network for a while, it was really a gathering where I really want to acknowledge the new Impact Hubs that joined, because many of them joined in a virtual capacity over the last 2 years. And since we met, like that's a long period of time to go without meeting a new Impact Hub that you start to sort of see on an informal WhatsApp group. And I think these hubs not only took part in the, took a commitment to the promise, of what the network could offer them, but like ended up on a hill randomly in Switzerland. Some of them have traveled thousands of kilometers, like other members did, but not really knowing what to expect. And I'm sure encountered like a kind of a fun combination of like crazy and beautiful, and business-like and kind of wacky. And so I'm really, also curious, how they find themselves fitting in. But I think that was also a really nice way to welcome folks into kind of a retreat format, and for some of us to come back. So just a couple of things I want to highlight, because I felt there was a lot of energy, like Monica said, around sort of these key shifts and such. And I think there's 3 things I just want to mention that I think, are not necessarily new to us, but I feel there's a lot more, maybe like Monica said, some boldness or some power, or like, I've had some energy around it. And one is the willingness to build something together. I think we said we're a collective, we're a network, we're all in it together. And then we kind of, maybe fragmented is a strong word, but kind of, we do have an allegiance or a loyalty to our own local context. But I felt that there was something about like, all right, we really want to be partners. We want to leverage partnerships. We want to be a system of influence. Like we want to up our game, and we need to find new ways of working together to do that. That stood out to me. Second of all, something that stood out for me is, and again, nothing new, strengthening our business model, but really looking at how do we also, we've been trying to build coherence over the years. How do we also welcome some innovation at the edges? How do we find some room to explore maybe a new business line or two, or how do we leverage the knowledge of particularly, hubs who have really built some stuff over time in the network? And what would those new models, look like? And how do we actually do more together to really become a bit more of an ecosystem, that can be more complementary in that way? And also the challenges of the co-working that we've seen over the last year and a half. So going, how do we reinvent ourselves in our relationship to space? And some exciting opportunities with that. And the third thing was a lot around positioning, marketing, and voice. And I say a lot of like, I think everybody feels this call to be like, we want to be a strong voice in the world, and not just, one that is trusted and one that is authentic, but also that's really showing up more boldly. But how to do that? While we love our diversity and we think this is a strength, sometimes, we have to sort of mediate ourselves to be like, can we all say this on behalf of the whole? So it felt that we want to find more fluency with what our voice is, both within our system and also particularly in the world. And so I think, sort of the tagline I'm growing into, it's something I keep saying, and I realize, maybe this is going to become my tagline, is how do we move from ambition to manifestation? So the 2030 goalpost, it feels close and far, but it gives us more room to move out of this year-on-year thinking, and to really build on what we've built and build forward in terms of what we don't know yet, to leave some room for that, that not knowing. So I'd say that's what I got out of it and I'm taking forward.
Thanks so much for that, Tatiana. I just popped a note in the chat too. You made a mention of new impact hubs. So like that, and there were a few that joined us in Switzerland. And I'm curious if anyone from one of those, that was their first in-person experience. If you wanted to share any reflections, please feel free. I'm going to pause just to see if someone steps up. But I have another reflection after, in case we have to wait. All right, maybe I can share something, and if someone else comes up in the chat while I'm sharing, could be helpful. I know that there was always that it's the first time after something, the pandemic is a moment and things are happening, and then this is the first time we're getting together after this this global event that it's affected us all differently in that space. I was in another gathering recently with another group where we had a keynote speaker, Marnie McBean, who's a Canadian Olympian. Rowing medalist from several Olympics, and she spoke to the group about not going back to normal, but forward to new was the frame that she used. So it wasn't about we think about all the changes that are happening, and that really stuck with me in terms of like, how do we take this and move forward to new? And I just think about that as a thing about, we tend to think, oh, we need to go back to the way we're doing things, and I think this possibility mindset and the things that are, what are the opportunities that have happened over the last 2 years, and how can we move forward to new, towards ambition 2030, and then that moving from that possibility mindset into that action mindset is something that really stuck with me in that gathering, and just offer that as sort of a nice reframe as we continue to evolve and shift. And I think we have Lamia coming to join, share some reflections as a new impact hub. So welcome. Oh, I remember this was your first snow. I remember that moment for the first snow. So why don't you share a little bit more about your experience in Switzerland?
Thank you so much, Lee. Hello, everyone. It was absolutely amazing to be able to meet you. And I think the first thing that we took back with us was the energy and the, how everything that you do has so much depth and so much love and so much heart in everything you do. And I think that's definitely something we were able to take in. We also took a lot of knowledge from everyone. We were like bugging everyone to understand how the model should be. What are some of the best things we can do? What are some of the things that we should not be doing? But in general, it was just absolutely amazing to be able to meet everyone in person for the first time ever. The snow was definitely an extra point, but I wasn't the only one. There was someone else with me. But yeah, absolutely amazing. I definitely look forward to the next global gatherings, and I definitely look forward to being more involved with this association and really learn and keep learning from all of you. Thank you.
So yeah, on behalf of everyone, again, welcome again to this great network, and to you and to your experience. I wonder if anyone else had something to share. I'm just seeing, I don't see any other raised hands, but give a moment to someone else who might want to share about their experiences, whether it was your first time as a new impact hub or someone who's been with the network for a little bit longer. Is there anyone that would like to share a couple more reflections?
I'm also wondering if anyone who wasn't at the retreat have any questions or wonderings about what happened as well.
Absolutely. So the next few minutes, like if there are some questions or some more reflections, we can do that. And I'm watching for raised hands, but we'll give people a little bit of space and time to do that. It's always interesting moving back from facilitating in person to virtually. I can't read the body language on everyone here in the moment. But if there's anything else that people would like to share, please feel free to pop it in the chat over the course of our time together today. And what I want to do now is maybe just pause a little bit and give a little bit of wayfinding for how we're going to be spending our time together over the next couple of days, including today. So there's a mix of working sessions and also some hot topic conversations. So a mix of plenary and deep dive conversations that we'll be hosting. And I'd like to maybe re-invite members of the board to come talk about the 3 core content blocks where we'll be working in breakout conversations or working sessions over the course of our time together. We'll give a little bit of an overview of, of sort of the arc of those 3 conversations. And then we'll dive into a little bit more around the Ambition 2030 and setting the context for that, which is where we're going to be spending the time after our break today. And then we'll have a bit of a musical performance for a 30-minute break, and then we'll come back and do our that first round of working sessions before our climate action panel and on the hot topics there. So I wonder if I can invite the board back and we can maybe share the screen and see your lovely faces and provide a little bit of context for each of those working group sessions. And if you're following along on the link we have the presentation slides available on the screen, but we also sent the link to the document in the chat. And the links to the breakout sessions and some of the resource documents and harvesting links are embedded right in the presentation. So if you want to scroll back up in the chat, maybe we'll put the link to the presentation back in the chat so it's available for everyone as well. But all the links to the harvesting and sort of the documents that we'll be talking about over the next few days are all embedded directly in the presentation document, and Flavia's just put it back in the chat.
And maybe just before we jump into the content specifically on Ambition 2030, I resonate a lot with something that Lamia just said about, well, they, as an impact hub, they came to learn to this global retreat, and that it is truly part of what our governance looks like, right? We have people incoming all the time. There are also for people and folks, just AREPs who have been with us for such a long time, sometimes we need to jump out, right? We jump back because we need to go very local, and maybe we're going through something in our local realities that requires a lot of our energy. And so we need to come back to our global hat to get cut back up with what's been going on. And so we do a lot of recap. We constantly do a lot of recap and a lot of learning and relearning, you know, in terms of our protocols and our strategy and how do we work together and how do we come together as business partners. And this sometimes may seem a little inefficient, but there's a magic in the way that our governance is set up, right? There is no top down where we're letting you guys know that you need to learn the strategy and the step-by-step, but a magic and just co-creating it grassroots. And it takes energy and it takes time, but it's quite magical as well. So again, we're gonna do a more in-depth retreat recap of what we did in the retreat to prepare us for the next days. Because again, for anyone who was at the retreat, we were in a possibility mindset, yeah? So we were exploring how it could look, but everything we did there was a temperature check, essentially, because we wanted to come together, all of us, to make decisions about our future together. And on the other hand, for the next 3 days, we'll be giving input and giving insights to our global team, to company and to the board and to the incoming board members, so that those insights can be taken and be worked with and come back to us as a version of a plan, a strategy, a proposal. And that's kind of the way we work constantly, right? So we give insights, which are very valuable. We harvest those, and then we come up with a plan and we approve it collectively. So there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of remembering what it is that keeps us together and keeps us running. So we're going to do a bit of an overview of the Ambition 2030, which we co-created in 2020. And from there, we're going to let you know what we worked on at this retreat and what we will be working on for the following 3 days. So I'll pass it on to Alfredo again.
Thank you, Moni. And well, if you ask me, the main goal of this online global gathering is to change for that decision mindset, to see the house in a tactical way, to set the goals and the next steps. And something that we found in this possibility mindset and in this like energy of the group, like Tatiana said, in our Ambition 2030 was a lot of focus in our impact hubs. We have our ambition divided in 3 parts. It's our impact hubs, our community of impact makers, and society. And a lot of things and a lot of conversations went along this first part of our impact hubs. So in a moment, like Monica said, we are going to deep dive on the Vision 2030, in our Ambition 2030, and we are going to focus in our impact hubs, what we can do as an impact hub, and we are going to talk about 4 specific topics. The first one, and like Tatiana said, is how can we pioneer new business models? How can we imagine new business lines as an impact hub? The second one, and that it was very, very important in all of this pandemic and in this time, is the health. And so the second one that we are going to talk about is to recognize, reward, and care for the well-being of our talents and team. Something that we learned from this pandemic is that without health and without well-being, there is nothing. So it has been very important, and what we can do as impact hub for our teams, for ourselves. The third one, and again, in this mindset of collaboration, of collective, it's going to be about translocal collaboration as the primary model of delivery. How, and I read it in the chat, how can we be more collective? How can we act more like a network? And it was a discussion, again, in a possibility mindset. And in this retreat is what are the next steps to be more translocal around ourselves? Okay, we are a network. How can we use this network? And finally, something also very, very important that we see and that Moni just told is the governance. And it is how we safeguard our mission and values through alignment by upgrade of leadership and governance from the local impact hubs. We know the importance and something that that gives us a lot of value as a network is this city resolution. We can zoom in as a city, we have the contact as a city, and giving this importance and this safeguard of our values is very, very, very important and interesting for our network. And for doing this, and with this I pass the word again to Monica, we found different shifts that we need to make as a network. And can we continue with the presentation, please?
Thank you. Just before going to the next slide, just to give you a bit of a recap before you see a lot of text. What we'll be doing the next couple of days is switching from a very typical just global online event, right? So we have the plenaries and then we'll have breakout rooms. And the plenaries will be a lot about connecting, recap, as we're doing right now, and alignment on different topics. But then the breakout rooms is where the real magic happens, where we really need your guys' input and your guys' insights, and where we want you to connect to each other in the smaller groups, right? Because right now it's a few of us speaking, but then in the breakout rooms is where we really want to hear you. So we expect a lot of participation. And as Alfredo said, we have the Envision 2030, which is basically the framework for our global strategy, our vision for 2030. So it's huge. And some of you might think, how can you create a strategy for 10 years? That is so long, that is so far away, right? But also it's because it's not set in stone. It's a lot about what we envision and what we want to achieve, but not necessarily what specifically. So we have some hints now, and we have some specifics that we're already aligned in. But the way that our strategy will be executed is that year per year, we're going to create a plan with the activities, with the OKRs, which will be reviewed, and we'll get that kind of in-depth and down-to-earth execution of how Vision 2030 is becoming a reality. But there is a more up here level of how we would like to operate. And in previous strategies, that how has been key to know how to operate amidst uncertain times. So when something happens, like a war, like a nuclear disaster, like a global pandemic, how do we react? How do we respond to that? Because you can lay as many plans as you want, but things are going to change. If something is certain, and we've realized globally, is that we are in the middle of changing times. So in the past, in past strategies, it's been key to know what are the strategic shifts that accompany our global plans, or so to speak, what are the hows of how we operate. In other words, these key shifts allow us to stay iterating through uncertainty. And so if we move on to the next slide, on the second day of the retreat, we co-created a list of shifts, of potential shifts, which are basically the shifts in mindset for this new strategy. How do we move from thinking this way to thinking this way? How do we move from acting this way to acting this way? And this can, what we've realized from past strategies is that these key shifts have come alive and have really changed our global and local contexts. So for example, in our last strategic process, we decided we will become truly global network, and our global footprint became a reality. And then we decided we will start leveraging our impacts at scale, and our translocal programs became more of a modus operandi than any other time in our existence. So we decided to create this list of 12 shifts that now need to be prioritized, but we first took them apart and we kind of dealt with them in groups, defined two things. One, what does it mean? What does this shift in particular means? Because you guys suggested it, so let's define it collectively. And second of all, what is getting in the way for this shift to become a reality? So all the harvesting documents are in that link at the bottom of the slide, but we're going to take you through a little about what they mean, because we're going to do a poll where hopefully we will globally rank them. So we will have a rank from top to bottom, which of these shifts you think are most crucial to enable our Vision 2030. So I'm going to start at the top. We had one group who went from short-term opportunistic to long-term partnerships. So no more short-term thinking, no more partners who just want us for the short term, but really how do we attract and look for and enable partnerships where we are thinking long-term and the impact we want to have in the world and we want to see in the world. Second, we had a group looking at from fragmentation to knowledge, how to be a data-driven organization. And we had really interesting conversations in that group where we talked about whether we are a knowledge organization, a data-driven organization. What do we want to share? How do we want to share it? How do we incentivize us sharing? And how do we collectively define success and work together in a more efficient way? And something you'll see and notice in this list is that they're all very interrelated, right? You'll see connections between all of them. It really is like taking them apart and understanding what makes this shift or the way that it's worded might be most beneficial for our global strategy and planning. The third one was from niche communication to mainstream positioning. And you're going to hear a lot of that because actually in the harvesting, many of the shifts and the groups who worked in each one of them brought up this kind of mainstream positioning and boldness in communications and so on. So this one touched upon that. The fourth one was from raising awareness to creating influence and specifically talking about policy here. So how do we kind of align in terms of being a role model in the ecosystem? How do we influence policymakers? How do we use our collective knowledge to embed in those policymaking processes? And how do we even co-create like multi-sectorial dialogue between say the entrepreneurs that we support, academia, policymakers, private sector, and so on. So there was some interesting conversations around that. Then we had an interesting group looking at from being a network of change to a system for change. And I think it touches upon a little bit of what Tatiana said at the beginning with her reflection of the retreat. We might sometimes say that we are a fragmented network. Fragmented, again, is a strong word, but how do we become more integrated? How is it easier for an incoming impact hub, new impact hub, to navigate our global network and governance? How do we integrate our business models, our shared content, our partnerships, and really become a functional, kind of like ecological, even if you will, system? So there were some interesting insights from that group as well. Then we had from local to global integration, and interestingly, the harvest from that group also mentions a lot of the same, right? So how do we make it easier? How do we turn our eyes from our local realities to really using all the resources available from our global collective knowledge? How do we make it easier for us to navigate that in a more kind of automatic and scalable way, and what things need to happen for that to become a reality? Then we had another group looking at from lack of confidence to bold and focused. And to me, it was a surprise to see that a lot of the conversations in that group were focused on communications as well. So very related to the mainstream positioning in the third group, where it was a lot about, let's be bold about what we do. Let's tell the world that we're out here doing this. And it was interesting to see that there is this need to kind of like share, almost shout into the world, like, look at what our communities are doing, look at what these entrepreneurs are doing. So a lot of focus on that. Then we had from impact measurement to management, and we actually merged two of the shifts, because we initially had this one and we had another one that said from outputs to outcomes, and we merged them both because they were very interrelated. But basically, how are we more bold and organized about our impact management? How do we not look just for the outputs, but really embody the outcomes and the impact we want to see in the world? How do we align that globally? Because we measure impact in very different ways locally. And how do we align in what it is that we want to see? How do we allow for local kind of specificity and context, but what are the minimum standards that we want globally, and how do we decide collectively about how that data is managed and so on? So some interesting insights there as well. Then we had a group looking at from scarcity to abundance. And again, it was very related to mainstream positioning, like let's be bold, let's tell people what we're doing, but also let's be good at saying what we're not going to do. Actually, we're not going to do that. We're going to focus on this, and we're going to basically define the lines, and we're going to do, for example, a market research where we compare ourselves to other organizations in the sector, and we show why there's value in the way that we operate and how we do the things that we do. So an interesting conversation there. We had a group looking at from talent attraction to retention, as many of you might be facing with the programs and partnerships teams. There's a lot of knowledge transfer into these teams, community builders as well. And when they leave, if they leave, there's a big gap and a big investment in kind of this human capital. So how do we look at that from a more strategic perspective? And it's somehow very embedded with the well-being component as well. We had a group, and bear with me, I know this is long, but we really want to catch everyone up and kind of what the other groups did, because we never did a proper like report back from what other groups did. So this is also for the people who were at the retreat. This is valuable for you guys as well. When I was looking at the harvesting, it was the first time I was seeing and looking at many of these as well. So we had a second to last group looking at from co-working spaces to multifunctional spaces. And that was an interesting conversation. As you can imagine, a lot of this has shifted because of COVID-19. Many spaces have had to reinvent themselves. Some have closed. Some are still in the middle of that. So there were conversations on, what is the space enabling for our model and for the impact we want to see in the world, right? Because it's been a long time where we haven't identified it all as a co-working space network. Like that's far gone. But space is still a crucial part of what makes us a network, right? Because it's a place where we meet. It's kind of where the magic happens. So how do we look at that in a new way? How do we reinvent the business model for that and so on? So interesting conversations there. Again, let's think about this as the shifts for our next strategy process. And then last but not least, we had a group looking at from internal focus to putting target groups at the center on a network level. And this was a tough one to unpack because there was a lot of conversation around, well, who are the target groups, right? We have global target groups, we have local target groups, and even at a local level, we look at very different target groups. Is it the members? Is it the people who participate in our programs? Is it the partners who fund us, et cetera, et cetera? So there's a lot of kind of co-defining and co-creation to do from there. There was a bit of alignment, but still more work to be done. And these are the 12 key shifts that may lead or guide the way in which we operate for Vision 2030, which we've already run into the first year of, right? It's already end of 2021, so it's less time before 2030 kind of hits. So again, the harvesting documents are there. If there is a particular group that you're interested in and kind of seeing where the thought was at, you can go there. And we had 3 rounds of kind of World Cafe looking at what open space where people could give insights. And we're going to have more of that. But we really want to invite you to fill out this poll, and the link is right there, and we can paste it in the chat as well, where you guys can prioritize. You don't have to do it right now, but hopefully before, well, Lee will confirm when we need that for, but we want you to take the time to look at those and to really think, okay, how do I prioritize this from most enabling for Vision 2030 to least? And because we need to focus again, we can't do them all. And for them to be powerful and for them to really guide us, we needed to be few and to kind of be very embedded and very easily rememberable so that hopefully you can use it locally as well as globally. And there's the link, so you can just go in there and fill it when you have the time. Thank you everyone for bearing with me. I know that was long.
Thanks, Mani. I think it's a great recap, and I think a great reminder too for folks there in terms of the context. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time, but I think it's important to make sure that we all have the right information to be able to make decisions and to fully participate. So you've gotten an overview right now of 2 of the sort of the working session blocks, and we're going to so today we're going to do Ambition 2030, tomorrow the key shifts, and then on Thursday we'll do from challenges to opportunities. And I'm going to invite Patricia to give a little bit of an update on sort of the focus for that, the context on Thursday. I think it's important that you get the sense of how all these things are fitting together before we dive into the session. So there's a bit of a method to the madness as we go through. So Patricia, over to you.
Thank you, Dee. So I shall do my best to summarize the discussions, but as with the other topics, the harvesting sheets are directly linked in the presentation. So feel free to go through the discussions. There's a lot that obviously I'm not gonna that are not in my summary for obvious reasons, but I definitely invite you guys to review the topic that you're interested, read the discussions in detail, and actively participate on the session on the 3rd day. So we discussed we essentially discussed 8 topics, which we consider them to be maybe not issues, but items to address that we can convert to opportunities. So if we're seeing, for example, maybe for the first one, how do we engage 100 million makers in our network? Well, this is part of our Ambition 2030. It's a challenge, it is, but it's also a great opportunity for us to really thrive as a network. So a lot of the discussions around that point were on the house, it's like, so how do we centralize this database? How do we have a central CRM that can house all this information? we need a deeper conversation about what engagement actually means at a local level through the members, and how do we really build a movement that will help us achieve that goal, because it is quite ambitious. So there's a lot of thought there's still a lot of a thought process to be held through that, but it's very but it's something that we do have as a challenge, and that as a network we want to find a way to have that 100 million reach, because we know if we do, we can significantly impact the SDGs, we can significantly impact our Ambition 2030. Then the next topic was on tech, and how do we have a digital transformation? So again, on how do we bring together technologies that we currently use at a local level, and how do we merge them so that we can have the data feeding in at a global level that will allow us to make better decisions, to have better data, to communicate impact in a better way. So how do we understand what is it that we need for our startups in terms of sharing information, in terms of data that we need from them, and how do we learn from local innovation or local implementation in the tech arena, so that we can find a way to bring that globally. We also discussed on how do we build on large scale partnerships, right? We have to, well, the discussions started on understanding really what a partner is. There was a conversation on do we classify, or how do we classify partners as community partners, impact partners, collaboration partners. So local collaboration is key because it can't be done just at a global level. So how do we implement the process? How do we leverage from the partnerships protocol that we already have to have a pilot process that that we can test and then scale, as we see it work. Then we also talked about how do we scale the most promising solutions? So how do we bring these opportunities to our startups so that we are seen as a platform for them to really thrive? So we have a large enough network that we could easily, or we can find a way to connect them. We can find a way to help them grow. We can find a way to connect them with opportunities that are happening on a worldwide level. So how do we map and how do we scale those opportunities across the network? Also, how do we come up with a business model for scaling programs? What is something that we can, how do we learn from others to really bring something that is a unique opportunity for our startups, but also like a good business or revenue line for us. We also had a session or a discussion on inclusion. Inclusion is what we, through a process, essentially we decided that we definitely need more clarity on inclusion. Leaders at a local level need to be better informed to make better decisions on how they can bring inclusion to their local realities, to their local context, because that can differ for everybody depending on where they are. So again, how do we provide the leaders with the information with using resources that we already have, so that this is a topic that can become a priority in our local context. Also, there was a discussion on impact logic and unique brand experience. So in terms of brand experience, what we saw as a challenge was that it is complex to communicate what we do. It's difficult for others to understand what we do as makers at Impact Hub. So how do we change the communication so that it's easy? It's easy for somebody to understand. It's easy for a child to understand what we're doing. And that will certainly make it easier for us to even reach that 100 million maker goal if we have find a better way to communicate what we do as a network. In terms of the impact logic, what we need, or what the discussion was held, is that we need a simple framework that will allow us to collect the data and report the data in a way that that can be sort of like universal and easy to understand for our partners, for our stakeholders, and for everybody involved with us. We also had a discussion on governance at multiple levels. At the Impact Hub Association level, there was a great discussion in place that was also a way to us to upgrade the governance protocol, which is currently in as part of our GA process. So we did also at the table, there was also a discussion on the AREPs. You know, what should be the capacity, the commitment of the AREPs to the network? How do we build accountability for the AREPs? How do we share know-how within AREPs so that we are all well aware of what we are all owed to the network and what we should be expecting from the network? Also, in terms of local governance, how can we share good practices at a local level so that other impact hubs so that we can learn from each other? How do we build or bring transparency in terms of the governance at a local level so that at a global, so that there's a better connectivity at global? At some point, we run into situations where we from a global level, we don't even know, we lack the transparency to even know who the shareholders are, you know, at some point. So how do we breach that gap, or how do we find a way to ensure that the governance at local impact hubs is something that from a global level we can be aware of? And then finally, climate. So the big question is, how do we reintroduce the environmental strategy, and how can we learn from each other? There's a lot that is being done at the local level. So how can we bring that information forward so that the hubs that still don't or aren't doing much in terms of climate can learn from others and bring those opportunities to their local realities? So from that is, there's an importance of mapping out initiatives around the network and understanding, you know, how climate needs to be addressed from a local perspective, and sharing information on what others are doing will definitely be key towards achieving that. So yeah, that's the summary on the 8 opportunities. So I definitely invite you guys, if any of these resonate with you, go to do a deep dive into the notes and into the discussions, as that will be a good a starting point for the discussions that we have on Thursday.
Thank you so much for that recap. I thank all members of the board for that time to share the recap of the focus for Ambition 2030, the key shifts and the opportunities to challenges. So that's how we're going to be spending our time together for the rest of those deep dive sessions, looking at those sessions. Again, today, Ambition 2030, tomorrow, key shifts, and Thursday, challenge to opportunities. I just wonder, Anna, if we could put the slides back up and maybe put it forward to slide 24. And just, this is the mindset. Again, we're moving from a possibility mindset. I know you said that a few times already, to sort of an action and space. And so in each of those workshop sessions or those breakout sessions, please have these questions in mind. So it's the same 4 questions that we're going to be thinking about for those 3 working sessions. So the first one, what and how is your Impact Hub living or doing this? The second question, what plans or ideas do you have or suggest? What should be our next steps? And how should we take those next steps? Again, moving from possibility to action and commitments is our goal for those 3 sets of working sessions that we're going to have today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Before we do any of that, though, we are going to take a break. And I'm excited to introduce Tessa Carina, who's a versatile harpist. I don't know if we can share the screen now. Put her up on screen. Who's joining us from the Netherlands. And we're going to take a 30-minute break, or around 30 minutes, and we're going to come back at the top of the clock. So for me, that's 11 o'clock Eastern time. For some of you, that might be 3 o'clock. But we'll be looking to come back at the top of the clock. Yeah, for the next 25 minutes or so, we'll have a beautiful musical performance. And I wonder if you wanted to say anything before you get started with the performance, or we can do that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me, first of all. I hope you guys had a great program today. So my name is Tessa Carina. I'm from the Netherlands, and I've been playing for over 18 years, more or less. So for now, for this little break, I will be giving an online healing harp concert. First of all, it's important just to make yourself feel comfortable. I can imagine that you have been sitting at the screen for a little while. So maybe that's by sitting down on the ground, or maybe you even want to lay down, or whatever makes you feel the most relaxed. Even if you prefer that, you can close your eyes. And for now, I just wanted to say, enjoy.
Thank you. We're very excited for the performance. Thank you so much. And for everyone, we'll see you back at the top of the clock to restart our agenda. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for that I don't know if people are sharing their enthusiasm or their gratitude for your performance, but yes. Do you want to tell us maybe a couple minutes, just a little bit about the music you shared and a bit about your practice, and then
hopefully, first of all, hopefully everyone is feeling a little bit more calm and relaxed, ready to move on with their day, with the program. So the harp is like a therapeutic instrument as well. So there are like different modes that I can play in, and it really resonates. It even resonates with like certain parts of the body. So there's a whole like course about harp used in music therapy, which I also find super interesting. And me myself, I've been playing like different kind of styles, mostly like modern music, but I also play meditation music, and I make my own meditation compositions for people to relax, which I do online and also offline here in Amsterdam. So yeah, that's a little bit about my life.
excellent. Again, I think there's some comments coming through the chat that was really calming and beautiful. Thank you. It was wonderful. The idea of a healing harp. I think it's it's one of those things. I know when you're in a room with someone playing, like the way that the music resonates off of the space that you're in, and you can sort of like, you don't not just hear the music, but actually feel it in your body. Right. Like, and you must, as the person playing the harp, you must feel that resonance, as you're playing. But I know that we're getting the idea of that, and I think that it's I know I'm coming back to our gathering, refreshed a little bit, like, clear mind and sort of ready for the work that we're going to be doing. So on behalf of everyone across the world who's with us today with the Global Impact Hub Network, un grand merci, a big thank you for your performance and to help start the rest of our agenda together. So we've also in the presentation, I've shared a link to your Instagram account if people are interested in following you as well, and learning a little bit more about you. But thanks for spending a part of your day with us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm happy that you guys enjoyed.
Excellent. Thanks again. Yeah, speaking of resonance, I think it feels like a great segue to the topics and what ideas are resonating with everyone here as we move to Ambition 2030 and our working groups. So I'm going to invite Monica to come back and provide a very quick recap of where we're going and the invitation for the next hour or so that we're going to be spending together. So we've been listening and taking in a lot of information, and now it's time for us to come together and roll up our sleeves. If you're wearing sleeves that can get rolled up, get ready to go and connect with your fellow makers and move these things forward. So Monica, maybe just a quick recap of the 4 groups and the invitation for makers for the next hour or so.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Tessa. That was amazing. I come back very relaxed as well. I love the music while making myself a cup of tea. So again, this is a recap, which we will do every year, probably every time we come together, a recap of Ambition 2030, because we have new people and new folks coming in all the time. And actually, this is also, I'm going to take this opportunity to do a little invitation. If you guys haven't had the chance to share Ambition 2030 and our strategy with your local teams, to do so. It's a wonderful way to also kind of have ownership of this information when you share it with other people. And like, for example, I know I've heard the stories of how, for example, Tatiana does a process with her team in Amsterdam where she shares the global strategy and they co-create their local strategy from there. So it's actually completely integrated, and that's what we envision it should be. I have a session with my local team this month to also go through this. So also, this is an invitation to kind of go through this again and share it with your local teams. So if we go to the next slide, just these slides are here. I'm not going to go into this in detail because we've gone through this several times, but this is just, the slides are here for you to maybe take the opportunity these days to share it with your teams or soon after. But again, this comes from our process in 2020 where we came together globally before our global gathering in November last year, in October, I think it was. And from there, we came together in a different world and in a different way. And this Vision 2030 is basically, if we go to the next slide, a calibration point for our next 10 years. So this Vision 2030 is a framework that provides directions for us as local impact hubs, but also for us globally as a network. And this is what company has been working with and the board has been working with to build the planning for the next year and looking into, you know, the next 3-year cycle. So a lot of what kept us together as a framework, as an umbrella, was the reimagine the future is now. So at some point we were thinking about the future long term, you know, 10 years, but then it became clear that we needed to react now. So if we move on to this next one, again, we realized that there was much, if we move on to the next slide, sorry, there was a lot that we were still aligned with. So we were very aligned with our values, very aligned with our missions and our how. But if we look at it from the next slide, and the next perspective is that we realized we had 3 levels, or we made it explicit in this strategy, where we're looking at each other from the Impact Hub's perspective, from our community, and the impact we're having on society. So we decided to divide our strategy in these 3 levels. And if we move on to the next one, we now have our Ambition 2030, where we say towards 2030, we are models for the business of the future. Harnessing diverse forces for good, we collectively lead the impact economy to be the present of our future. So hopefully that sounds inspiring and kind of rings close to home for all of you guys. And we want to achieve this at 3 levels with our impact hubs, our community of impact makers, and our society. And so when we look at our impact hubs, this is the level we're going to be looking at today. So we have many ambitions, but today we're going to tackle the first level. What are we doing at a local level? What are we already acting upon? How are we working with our local teams? And how can we plan to further integrate this into the work we're doing? And so you'll see that this framework, it can be read as columns, where below the community of impact makers, you can kind of see the ambitions and the OKRs that we set for that particular level. So if we move on to the next slide, again, we're going to be working today in the first 2 columns, right? So the ambitions in the first column, and we're going to move on to the next slide because that's too little anyway, but just so you know that all the ambitions are there, and you can review them at any point. I'm actually going to ask you to go to the next one because that's where we have them in a bigger, yeah, that's great, thank you. So we're going to be looking at these 4, again, in the impact hubs level. We pioneer new business models for sustainable, inclusive, and financial resilience. As Alfredo read this morning, we recognize, reward, and care for the well-being of our talent and teams. This is something that we spoke about in detail and in depth in the retreat, and that has actually come up in many, many calls with AREPs throughout the year. Then we embed translocal collaboration as the primary model of delivery. Which is a big shift from where we are at now currently. And then 4th, we safeguard our mission and values through alignment, upgrade of local leadership, and governance. So we currently discuss a lot our global governance. How do we bring local back into that? How do we discuss how we want our local governance to be built, how we want to relate to global, and keep looking at that, right? Because these are decisions we've made from a long time ago, and we want to revisit them and understand if that is the best way to carry our Ambition 2030 forward. So I will let Lee do some wayfinding for how we are going to divide ourselves into these 4 groups, and what are the questions we're going to be tackling in each one of the groups.
Great, thank you, Monica, for the overview. So now, again, it's time to get to work. And through the magic of Zoom, Beata is going to create our breakout rooms. So there's going to be a few breakout rooms available on for you to navigate to. And I know since last time, Zoom has had an upgrade too, so you can choose your own adventure and move to the conversation where you want to go on your own. So soon you'll see 5 breakouts actually. So there's the 4 topics, and there's another breakout if you have to pop out for a reason, take a phone call or take a break. That's a spot where you can park yourself in the phone booth. If you need to take a break and be offline for a moment, you can do that, or if you have to disconnect. The core team will be staying in the main room in case you have any tech issues, so we'll be there to help you along that way. So Beata, when you're ready, you can open up the rooms. We're going to share the links to the harvest documents as well in the chats once you get there, but they're also linked in the presentation deck that you already have. So Alfredo is going to be helping to steward the conversation for topic 1 on pioneering new business models. Tatiana is going to be taking charge around recognizing, reward, and care for the well-being of our talented teams. Monica is on deck for translocal collaboration. And Patricia is taking care of our mission and values through alignment of local leadership and governance. So I believe the breakouts should pop up now. There's 1 round. So what we're asking you to do is to go to the topic that you have the most excitement for, or energy or agency to move forward. So we're asking you to commit to 1 for this topic. If you get into a session 2, the law of 2 feet still applies, though, and you have energy to go somewhere else, please feel free to pop in and out. Just be mindful of the fact that you might be joining a conversation and some work that's already in progress. So the invitation is for you to go where your energy is and where you have agency to be able to move that forward. And you're going to have an hour together in those breakouts, and Beata or I will put out some warnings and reminders in terms of the amount of time you have left in case we need to wrap. And then we'll come back and do our hot topic conversations around climate action. So that's all the wayfinding, I think, at this point. We're right on schedule. So we can start the breakouts now, and we'll come back here at 1/4 the hour, so 15 minutes past the hour, for a bit of a recap and moving on to hot topics. So Beata, whenever you're ready.
Yes, we just closed them and need to reopen them because we set the timer wrong. So in 60
worries.
seconds, I'm opening the rooms again. But if you want to use 60 seconds to make up your mind on which breakout room you go, that's the best to use the time.
Thank you, Beata. Does anybody have any questions about the groups or anything else, the dynamic? I'm excited. I love breakout rooms.
I'm excited because, the joy of facilitating in person is you can sort of, as a facilitator, you can go around and listen to what people are doing. But the joy of virtual is bringing everyone back at the same time. So that's always fun to be able to bring everyone back. And you're on your own for coffee today. I apologize. But you're on your own to get coffee, tea, and things like that. So, but it'll be up to you if it's ready or not.
Jasper, you had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, are everything in the same document, or is the group leader responsible for harvesting the conversation?
There is a shared document for each of the conversations. So there's 1 document per conversation. So there should be 4 documents.
And you can find them,
harvest.
You can find the link to each of them on the chat here, or on the on one of the slides. On the presentation, if you click on the plus sign, that's where you can find the harvesting document for each of them as well.
And we just opened the breakout room. So there's the breakout room button in your menu bar where you can choose which breakout group to go to. In case you have an older Zoom version and it doesn't show you the breakout group option to hop in yourself, just let us know and we can also move you somewhere if needed.
Excellent. Enjoy the conversations, and we'll see you back in an hour. Everyone knows how to do it. It's always wonderful. All right. Welcome back. Like I said, this is my favorite feature of Zoom hosting, is just everyone back and attention right away. I see also a baby on someone's Zoom. There was a future maker, I think, on someone's lap that I could just see in the Zoom. So that's always delightful. If anyone has any pets to share too, I know we had a dog. I have a cat sitting on the couch right there sleeping, but if anyone else has any pets to share, please feel free to throw them and welcome them to the meeting. Yeah, I hope that the conversations went well, and I know that sometimes the velocity with which Zoom brings you back might have cut off a conversation. And I wonder if I can invite each of the leads for the session to share like one key insight, like one aha from your gathering. So not a full report back, but one key insight from each of your conversations. And maybe I'll start with Alfredo, then Monica, then Patricia, and Tatiana in that order, so you guys know what's up. So Alfredo, over to you.
Well, very fast. It was a great conversation, and for new business models, we were discussing about having more structured programs so we can scale. How can we make angel investors part of our network? And this was very interesting. And also, how can we work more near with cities to have seed funding for our members and our ventures? So we felt a lot of energy around these three subjects.
Wonderful. Thanks for the update. Mani, over to you.
I've come back so re-energized. I absolutely love the discussion about embedding translocal programs as our primary mode of delivery. We had great just resources from what everyone is doing and what we can do to improve some of that. We've discussed extensively, but I think one phrase that I'm left with is that innovation needs to be a priority and not a thinking on the side. And we need to allocate resources, passion, and make it more intentional to excite the world about what we're able to do together.
Excellent. Well done. Up next.
So we had a small committee. It was like a petite committee, but it was very enriching. This was definitely a great conversation that took a turn that I was not expecting. We essentially were talking about how to safeguard our mission and values through alignment and how to upgrade local leadership and governance. And we came up with a new business idea.
Nice.
So we think that, part of this is how do we measure ourselves? How do we measure our governance and ensure that that we are creating impact? And how do we make sure that doesn't rely or that doesn't depend on the founders of Impact Hubs, and how that can transcend to future generations? So we thought, okay, well, why don't we have our own measuring tool similar to B Corp, but that incorporates all of our learnings that we have as a network, all of our expectations of what impact should be and what that governance should look like, and how can that then become a measuring tool for ourselves, for our members, and for our partners. So it's very interesting if we can how we can continue that conversation, maybe through the impact committee. And but then after all of that, then we had a bit of more of a discussion on how we, to make sure that we thrive as a global network, we have to have the mechanisms or safeguards on communication locally, so that we can strengthen like local governance and make sure that that our mission and our values are safeguarded beyond the current leadership. So sharing best practices with each other, learning from each other, and understanding, how other Impact Hubs are doing that, maybe, through legal safeguards, shareholder agreements, visual tools that get communicated with the teams, to our stakeholders, etc. So very interesting conversation.
Thank you. Sometimes those smaller groups can sometimes be the richest groups too, right? So it's the caliber of the conversation is wonderful. Tatiana, final word to you on your group.
Yeah, so a little insight, I think, was this relationship between well-being and people development. So we spent quite a bit of time in looking at how we care for our teams and what are the tools. And there's some there's a pragmatic side to that, but there was also another side in terms of, what is leadership to us? What is the hub way of leadership? How do we create space within the network for exercising and growing our leadership? And also, how is that a potential export for, what is new leadership, the practice of it for the new economy? And so I think, there was kind of an all levels conversation, but I'd say, yeah, some pragmatic tools, understanding how we can check our quality of these things, but also how we evolve our practice through doing it.
Excellent. All right, so fruitful conversations. I know that there was, yeah, you don't have the benefit of listening in while people are moving forward in the virtual space, but lots of content, lots of things on the harvest sheets as well. So thank you everyone for your participation. So now we're going to flip gears a little bit and move into our first of our 3 hot topics conversations. And now, we've asked you to input into a process relating to Ambition 2030. And here's an opportunity to take something and learn, and maybe take something and apply to something in your Impact Hub. So it's a little bit of the quid pro quo in terms of the frame. So today's hot topic conversation is on climate action and how these are going to work today, tomorrow, and Thursday. We have some makers and some guests who are going to share on variations on a theme in terms of a particular topic of something that you could take away and maybe apply directly in your Impact Hub. So the first one today is on climate action. And so we've got 3, I guess, things to think about today for this conversation. And I'm going to ask Meet and Laura, if they're online now, to take a few minutes to just set the tone with an overview of the climate strategy. And we'll take 3 to 5 minutes here. And then I'm going to invite Hermes and Joanna, or actually Hermes is going to do the sort of the invitation or the pitch for something related to IKEA. And then Mario Romero will do the same thing for the waste challenge. And then you'll have the opportunity to choose your own adventure and decide which of the conversations you want to learn a little bit more about and ask some more specific questions. So they'll take turns right now to share a bit of an overview, and then we'll go into breakouts and you can pick where you'd like to go to learn a little bit more. There'll only be about 20 to 25 minutes for those breakouts. So in order to keep that time for all of you, I'm going to turn it over to Meet and Laura to give us a little bit of an overview on the climate strategy.
Hey, thank you, Lee. I just wanted to share my screen, if that's fine.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Okay. Hey everyone, thank you for having me here today. And I'll just be taking a very quick run through and overview through what we have been through. I think a lot of you have been a part of the environmental strategy launch, which happened at the Makers Festival. And as you know, one of the main things which we're looking at was how regional and global communities alongside Impact Hubs can tackle the climate emergency as well, and how it can become one of the most important part of our ambition by 2030, where we included topics such as net zero, food and agriculture, and making circularity as a key driver. And one of the key elements which we thought about was to ensure that the work we are doing is grounded in science and it's positive and it's making a just and sustainable transition towards where we look at business and profit as in a form of servicing the planet and people. And which took us to giving us the key focus topics, which was worked out with a lot of people across the network. And this collaboration brought us to bringing 2 goals, which was around net zero and food and agriculture, with making circularity as one of the key drivers underneath the work we do, and having certain supportive themes on that. One of the most important thing, which I would like you to just have a look at, was if you look at the figures over here, it's very astonishing, and it makes me happy to see that a lot of people, a lot of hubs across the network are already taking action in a lot of topics which we are looking at environmental strategy. So to just give a glimpse on it, that we are not starting from the scratch, we are already working towards it, and how we can start making this a bigger goal and a collective action we can take towards a global theme, a global strategy together. And that's the perspective over here. Now, while working over the past 4 months since I've joined the company, we divided the work of the environmental strategy into 3 strategy pillars, one of them being the Green Impact Hub Network, which was more about functioning as a role model through the space use, through carbon neutrality, and through our sustainable practices, to environmental positive impact makers of how can we empower impact makers to build and grow their venture aiming for neutral or positive environmental impact. And finally was scaling green ventures to support green ventures to scale their solutions faster. And something which has happened over the recent month, and I think we have recently sent across the email to the company, very happy about that, is we have been able to translate this environmental strategy into a roadmap now. And the projects the pillars which you saw on the previous slide are the pillars over here, the 3 pillars which you see. And each pillar now has a project. So we are focusing on projects such as local impact hub space management, which focuses on sustainability practices of the impact hubs, carbon neutrality of how can we be a role model towards a net zero space, which we build across Impact Hub company and the network as well, to members' environmental impact of how can we integrate these practices within our programs, and to circularity program of how can we scale the existing global circularity program, which is happening with the pilots, towards a larger circularity program where all the offices across the network could integrate the circularity design principles in their work, to building communities of practice, learning from each other of how are we doing these programs, how are we implementing these programs with environmental practices, and finally transitioning these learnings to build our own global environmental programs, which everyone can benefit from. And if you see the last pillar, that's more of an internal pillar where we are going to be working with the entire global network, with the Impact Hub company on coordination and communication practices. So as we move into the breakout space, I'll just take the last 30 seconds, is for you to be aware of what is coming up next is we are having an external launch happening of the environmental strategy in the next week. So you can join the communication, and a communication package will be shared with all of you. Complete, and if you want to participate more in this strategy work, you can complete the environmental strategy survey, which link I'll be sharing as a follow-up in the breakout room as well. And the first opportunities which you can discuss in the breakout room with me is we are going to be having calls being set up to exchange practices of net zero in the coming month. We'll be also having conversations to talk about how can we take these practices ahead with Impact Hubs such as Impact Hub Sweden, Impact Hub Berlin, and it could be you as well. And we're going to be talking about net zero initiatives connection call, because recently on the WhatsApp group, we're talking a lot about Climate Hub. And we want to take this opportunity to see how can we integrate this to have more conversations around it. And finally, the Amplifiers Makers group, we want to integrate all of you to being a part of a larger group which can feedback us and work together. So thank you for that.
Okay, that was it. What?
You are muted, Lee.
Lee, you're muted. We cannot hear you.
Of course, I had to do that, right? One time, the host has to not be unmuted. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to flip it to Hermes now from Impact Hub Zagreb to talk a little bit about the IKEA initiative.
Sure, can you hear me now? Yes, it's all good? Yeah, okay, cool. So I'm gonna try to make it in 3 minutes. So I'm gonna explain a little bit about the IKEA Acceleration Program. IKEA Acceleration Program, it's a program from our portfolio for global companies that connects relevant startups with their business innovation efforts. In the case of IKEA, our intervention generates new value for the global IKEA value chain by connecting them to the latest innovations on the ground. So currently we are working on 2 tracks. We have the food innovation, looking for disruptive and revolutionary food alternative proteins. That's what we are helping IKEA with. The second thing within food innovation is that we are looking for innovations that are byproducts to food and circular flows. So those are the challenges that IKEA had in the food. But we also are working with IKEA to find innovations within the second track, which is packaging innovation. So in packaging innovation, we help them to help find sustainable new materials to protect IKEA furniture products. And the second thing that we help IKEA with is finding innovations that fit new ways of safely transporting the goods for omni-channel retail. So this is a lot about the challenges that IKEA had, but what do we really do with this program that we are bringing from the global to IKEA? We help IKEA to shape their innovation challenges through the process that we have developed by facilitating and hosting several discussions and other interactions with externals and different startups. We also help the IKEA core team to develop a criteria for selection. We match them with the best options worldwide, and we help them scout worldwide and select the best organizations that build these pilots that IKEA would like to have. And here is an important thing to mention. There is expertise and collaboration from at least 5 different Impact Hubs around the world. A big example that I can tell you is the scouting team from Impact Hub Amsterdam, which is helping us to really track and collect different innovations at the worldwide level. So what is this whole approach have to do with, what is exactly what IKEA is getting with this example? Well, we are shortening a typical open innovation process to let's say 6 months in this way, with each one of the tracking challenges that we have with them. We are matching the right innovations to the right needs, properly connecting IKEA to organizations that are aligned with their values, which are also aligned with their sustainability plans, the long-term intention, and the scale capability. And some of the outcomes that it's important to mention from what we have done with IKEA, we have brought around 150, if I'm not mistaken, mature and high growth potential companies for them to choose from, because they want, at the end of the day, to develop pilots from the food track, but from the packaging, it's a different roadmap of collaborations. We have spent with the core innovation team of IKEA per track around 100 hours, 4 conversations for strategic thinking, venture selection, and decision making. And just to give you an idea, so far the track of food with IKEA, it's finishing, and 4 companies have been selected to pilot in 5 different pilots so far with them. In packaging, we still have, we still need to match the final startups, but we have identified from around 60 that applied, 12 and 16 relevant scalable startups for starting the collaborations, different type of collaborations with them. So how does this have to do with let's say, our global ambition 2030? Well, by having these kind of programs at the global level with such an organization like IKEA, we are generating large-scale partnerships. So we scale solutions faster, and we obviously pioneer new business models for sustainable, inclusive, and financial resilience. And the second one that has to do with our ambition is related to offering solutions to international organizations. And in this way, we are embedding translocal collaborations as the primary model of delivery. I mentioned that there are at least 5, the expertise of 5 different impact hubs that we are putting together. What is one lesson that can be applied to other impact hubs? Well, let me tell you that as being one of the, very honored to be one of the members of this innovation team with IKEA, I have figured out that, I have realized that we already have within our network the skills, the knowledge, and capabilities to deliver such a program. But even more importantly, we have the reach and the positioning in the global impact ecosystem to match the best startups worldwide. We can really say, like, hey, IKEA, we can find you the best startups in food innovation or in packaging innovation worldwide. And not to mention the clear understanding of the challenges and issues to scale of those startups, so we can have a different conversation with the startups, matching them very well, preparing them very nicely to get connected to IKEA for the follow-up collaborations. This places us in a very good position because it allows us to really compete at the global level with other consulting organizations, and we really need to be bolder by offering at the global level this kind of services. And the last thing from our side, very quickly, it will be what advice will we give to other impact hubs wanting to start a similar program? Well, dig into your LinkedIn contacts to connect regionally or locally with organizations that will be interested in this, because I'm sure, as we have discussed previously in the translocal discussion, this should and need to be the future or one of the core activities that we will have with Impact Hub.
Excellent. Thank you, Hermes. Looking forward to, I just wanted to dig in, and I know Peter's put in a couple of comments that are quite impressive in the chat related to this. So if people want to dig into that, please join. And Mario, over to you quickly to talk about the waste challenge.
Yes. Hi everyone. I don't know if I'm the right person to talk about the waste challenge. This was an opportunity brought to us thanks to the partnership between Impact Hub Amsterdam and what the sign can do. But gladly I can share what we have been done in this collaboration with Amsterdam and what the sign can do. I don't know if you have heard of that organization. It's a big organization promoting, transformation from mostly the design industry, packaging, fashion, and everything to be more conscious and responsible about the impact of those processes, right? So what Design Can Do had the second challenge here in Mexico with No Waste Challenge, and the whole program was developed in collaboration with the Impact of Amsterdam. So in Mexico, they have a big role, and they have really great partnership. And I'm talking about what design can do with the government. And so, and because it's linked to the creative industries, we are one of the principal or main organizations that have programs related to creative industries entrepreneurship here in Mexico. So gladly we join this partnership with Impact Hub Amsterdam and No Waste Challenge to promote the challenge here in Mexico and to find those solutions related to, of course, waste, sustainable packaging, and so. And gladly we have a really good call. We have really great solutions for them. I believe all the impact hubs were involved as well in the scouting of the projects. And here in Mexico, some of the projects that we already supported with our programs were in the final selection. And actually one of our projects from Impact Hub Mexico City won as a finalist and had the opportunity to travel to Amsterdam a couple of weeks ago to receive some money and the specialized program that Impact Hub Amsterdam built. But after that, we are developing a local program for the winners. Mexico had 3 winners globally to support them with mentorship and just helping them develop their startups here in Mexico with local connections and local money and so on. But basically, it's a great project that I believe it's also supported by IKEA. So IKEA, it's around a lot of programs that we have worked with and related to this No Waste Challenge. But just as I mentioned originally, the whole big partnership was thanks to Impact Hub Amsterdam. And I'm happy to share what we're doing in Mexico with this collaboration and these projects, and to reflect on what we have found out about the future of packaging and no waste related startups as well.
Excellent. I'm going to stop you there because I think I want to have some time for people to dig in a little bit deeper. And I'm sensing a theme in terms of packaging, translocal partnerships, embedding climate across everything the Impact Hub is doing. So what I'm going to ask now is, Beata, we've got about 22 minutes left on the agenda today for our time together. And we're going to spend, I'd like to, if you want to go to it, we'll create the breakouts now for the 3 topics. And this is a chance for like, okay, quick hit. What's one thing that you can take back or a question you might have to take back to your Impact Hub related to either the strategy, the IKEA collaboration and the large scale partnership, or the No Waste Challenge. So take 15 minutes, this is the opportunity to even make a connection for follow-up afterwards. Come back, and then I have a little bit of more instructions for tomorrow, including a bit of a preview of a surprise we're gonna have tomorrow. So stick around for that. Beata's got the rooms open, and we'll see you back here in about 15, 16 minutes.
Have you tried the Zoom immersions yet?
No.
Okay, try
next
it later.
level, I guess. Tip for later.
I don't like this. I got cut off.
Oh, sorry. I'm just like, yeah, come back, and you're in the middle of that wonderful thought or that awesome conversation.
It was going to be an inside conversation, and you cut it off.
Oh, I love it. I love the burn. Thank you for that. Yeah, and I think hoping it gives a little bit of a taste of conversations. And I know that we're spending a lot of time today in like larger groups or in the small group discussions, and it feels like, we aren't quite finished. So let's just hold on to that energy for tomorrow, because tomorrow we're going to kick it up a notch and continue to work on the shifts and some of the other things. There's also, be ready for a surprise. We've got a surprise that's going to happen at some point during the gathering tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. something that I think you'll find very, yeah, just amazing and inspiring, hopefully, and at least a little bit fun. But so stay tuned for that. For tomorrow, also a link in the chat now, Beata is going to hit enter. A reminder to fill out the survey to help us prioritize the shifts for tomorrow when we start our day together tomorrow. So if you want to just click on that, have it open as a tab. I don't know what's the average number of tabs on a maker's browser, but pop open a tab and have it there for you to remind yourself to do that later before you sign off today. And we're going to start back again tomorrow at the same time that we started today. Looking tomorrow again on key shifts. The last slide we can share the agenda. I've put that as the last slide of the presentation. Now, if you're following along, so we're going to start together, do another hot topic conversation tomorrow on impact at scale, translocal collaborations. A little bit about your role as an AREP before our special musical performance. And then tomorrow's deep dive conversation around these key shifts before we wrap the day with another hot topic conversation on inclusion in entrepreneurship. So we're at time almost, and I tried to commit to keep starting on time, having the breaks when we say, and ending on time. And what I'd like to do is invite everyone. So we're going to break off one more time. So thank you for putting us back on gallery view. It's good to see everyone's smiling faces. I'm going to extinguish our candle, our lantern for our time together today, and invite everyone. Now we're going to put you into breakout groups of 2 or 3, just to share a note of gratitude with someone that, I know that we've had the chance to connect in larger group conversations, and you might have wanted to reach out to someone to say hello or thank you or how are you. And as we close our time together, let's take the last 4 or so minutes in a small group. We're going to trust the Zoom magicians to put us in a group where we can say goodbye and share a note of gratitude with someone before we start again tomorrow at the same time. So that's 9 o'clock Eastern for me, 12 o'clock GMT, I believe, and 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock GMT, 2 o'clock Central European time zone. There is also going to be the Asia Pacific update for those who are joining us from Asia Pacific with a recap before we start. So I'm going to blow out the candle. And Beata, you're going to zip us off into groups, and look forward to seeing everyone again tomorrow.